Committee members, I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 3 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Human Resource Skills and Social Development and the Status of Persons with Disability. Today's meeting is a hybrid format, and today's meeting is to begin clause by clause reading of Bill C-3. A reminder, all the comments by members witness should be addressed through the chair, and when you're speaking, please speak slowly and clearly. As I indicated, Bill C-3 is an act to amend the Criminal Code and the Canada Labour Code. Pursuant to the order of reference on Thursday, December the 9th, 2021, the committee will resume its consideration of Bill C-3. Before we begin clause by clause consideration, there is a matter to discuss regarding the routine motion, specifically the routine motion governing orders of reference in the House respecting bills, if it is the will of the committee. Is it the will of the committee? It's notwithstanding the routine motion that was adopted by the committee for 48-hour notice. We have to, okay. So we dispense with that routine motion for this meeting. The 48-hour notice to file amendments prior to the start of clause by clause shall be waived. I see agreement from the committee. Thank you, committee members. So we will begin with clause by clause, beginning with clause 1. Shall clause 1 carry? Yes. Carried. Clause 2.
Yeah.
This is under clause 2 that there's probably an amendment from CPC.
I understand there may
Point
be...
of order. Sorry. Point of order, Chair. I don't understand why we're not reading the summary first. It just seems to me, I understand we want to get through this today and we still have an hour and 25 minutes. But I still, I don't even feel like clause 1 addressed the summary. So I just feel as though we need to go back and address the summary first, please, and then go to the first clause. And I didn't nod my head in consent for the first clause. I'm not sure if my colleagues did, but I didn't. So it wasn't carried. So if we could just go back, please.
This summary is not under consideration, Madame Kuzi, so therefore it's not in discussion. I have a question from Ms. Chabot. Madame Chabot.
I was going to make the same observation, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
We noted. We were dealing with clause 1. I had called the question. Nobody objected. It was carried. Madame Kuzi.
Point of order. Thank you, Chair. I didn't give my agreement, so I don't think that it was carried. And can you please just, when you identify the clause, if you could please read the first sentence of the clause, because it's not clear from the legislation really as to which are the clauses.
Well, okay, we'll be clear. Clause 1 is paragraph A of the definition of offense in the section 1.
I would even say, Mr. Chair, it's not that much, it's not a lot of text, perhaps. If we could read the text in the entirety of the clause, that would certainly be very helpful to me, because it's not entirely clear to me what we are approving to carry. So if you could please, it would help me, Chair. I apologize for placing this time on the committee. If this was like several hundred pages, I can certainly understand not reading the text, but given the shortness of the length, and I mean this in sincerity, if you could kindly read the content of the clause, that would be helpful. And I believe you'd only have to in one official language, since the other would be translated. And as I stated, given the brevity of the bill, I believe that it's not too onerous to ask. Thank you so much for that consideration.
Thank you, Madame Kuzi. We're dealing with clause 1, paragraph 1A of the definition of offense in section 183 of the Criminal Code is amended by adding the following after paragraph.
We'll get there. But
Yeah. Okay, you've heard it. Shall clause 1 carry?
Sorry, Chair, point of order. I'm sorry, to clarify, so you read adding the following after subparagraph section 423.2 intimidation health services. That's the area in entirety you're referring to for clause 1? To clarify? Okay, that's great. Yeah, if we could just be totally clear, that'd be very helpful to me. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, that carries with me. Thank you.
Good. Clause 1 shall carry. Clause 2.
Mr. Chair, you want me to read
Yes,
clause 2?
I'll ask the
Okay.
legislative clerk to read.
Anyone. Thank you kindly, Chair.
Okay. Clause 2 of the bill, C3, the act is amended by adding the following after section 423.1, intimidation health services, 423.21, every person commits an offense who engages in any conduct with the intent to provoke a state of fear in a person in order to impede them from obtaining health services from a health professional, B, a health professional in order to impede them in the performance of their duties, or C, a person whose functions are to assist a health professional in the performance of the health professional's duties in order to impede that person in the performance of those functions. Obstruction or interference with access. 2, every person commits an offense who, without lawful authority, intentionally obstructs or interferes with another person's lawful access to a place in which health services are provided by a health professional. 3. Quiconque commet une infraction.
Punishment. 3. Every person who commits an offense under subsection 1 or 2 is A, guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for a term of not more than 10 years, or B, guilty of an offense punishable on summary conviction. Defense. 4. No person is guilty of an offense under subsection 2 by reason only that they attend at or near or approach a place referred to in that subsection for the purpose only of obtaining or communicating information. 5. In this section, health professional means a person who is entitled under the laws of a province to provide health services.
I find it like, as members, we have these all in front of us. I don't know why we have to be read them also. I think that takes a lot of time. I'm just not clear on why we have them. I'm not sure why we need them read to us. So I think, we're delayed anyway, correct? Because, there was documents not translated from the Conservatives, I believe. So I would suggest that we don't need to read every word in these every clause. I just find it irregular. I'd like you to rule on that if you could, Chair.
Madame Kuzi?
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I think really, if we look at what has been read to this point, it is essentially a third of the bill. Like, and it's not even 4:15. I think if I asked for it, it's a courtesy, and I don't think it is, as I said, too onerous. If it was even 50 pages, absolutely. But I think, 7 pages or 6 pages, however many pages, not even 6 pages. Let me take a look here. 5 pages is not too onerous, and so I really don't think that it's that big a deal. And if any other colleague would have asked for it, I certainly would have supported that and allowed for that. So, and as I said, we're like 1/3 of the way through the reading with it being done, but. I find it, I really don't see it as being a major inconvenience. If we, for the true clarification of what we are passing, I think it's fair and reasonable.
Chair, if I might, I'd just say whether it's 1 page or 300 pages, it's in front of us. I just think it's unnecessary and unreasonable that the clerks have to read everything that we can just read in front of us. I just find it unreasonable. Anyway, it's my 2 cents.
Mr. Coutu?
Yeah, can I suggest that perhaps maybe we just stick to maybe the bold? If there's a disalignment or the assumption there may be a disalignment between what's being read and what's being voted upon or what person has in front of them, let's just stick to the bold and it'll identify the clause clearly.
I will take the direction from the committee. Does the committee want to proceed with the Legislative Council reading verbatim each member in, or does it want to, as described, you have the bill before you? What is the wishes of the committee? Mr. Bullers?
Je pense que c'est pas nécessaire.
I agree with the suggestion made by my colleague, Mr. Long. I think we have work to do this afternoon, and I think we can just read it.
Okay, Madame Chabot?
I also agree. We have the bill right before us. We're able to read it. We had to read it when we went through the amendment exercise. So I agree for a good reason. I just don't see the purpose in insisting on reading the whole thing. I agree that we should not read the whole thing.
Thank you. Then it appears there's a consensus within the committee that we proceed. We do not proceed with reading verbatim the bill that's before you. So Clause 2. Madame Kuzi, do you have an amendment on Clause 2?
I do, and I'll remember the consideration of other members of this committee when they ask for some type of consideration. I do, Chair, thank you very much, that Bill C3 in Clause 2 be amended by adding after line 25 on page 1 the following. 2.1, that every person commits an offense who engages in any conduct with the intent to provoke a state of fear in a critical infrastructure worker in order to impede them in the performance of their duties. B, by replacing line 2 on page 2 with the following. Shun 1 or 2, or 2.1 is. C, by replacing line 7 on page 2 with the following. 4, no person is guilty of an offense under subsection 2 or 2.1. D, by adding after line 13 on page 2 the following. 6, in this section, critical infrastructure worker means a person who conducts or supports operations or services that are essential to the health, safety, security, or economic well-being of Canadians, including relation to food supply, electricity, grids, pipelines, communications, and transportation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Madam Kuzi, I believe those amendments are not admissible as they're outside of the scope of the bill.
According to who?
I'll ask the legislative.
Okay, certainly. And I would be
clerk
interested to
speak
hear
it.
according to who, excuse me, and the justification for that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The bill relates to the health services, and my understanding, because I just read the amendment, it talks about critical infrastructure worker, and as I said, the bill talks about health services. This amendment adds a new concept, and it's not related to the bill itself. Therefore, it's expanding the scope of the bill, which is not allowed by the procedure.
Okay, the committee has heard the amendment and my ruling on it. Madame Kuzi?
Yeah, thank you very much to our analysts. You know, I would also state, though, that outside of the term health services, it also refers to the offense of obstructing or interfering to a place where, if we were to interplace critical with health services or provided. So, I think it is actually within the realm of the bill, but certainly I'm willing to accept the analyst's interpretation. But I do think it is relevant. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Kuzi. We shall then vote on, shall Clause 2 carry without amendment? The clause shall carry. Clause 2 shall carry. Clause 3?
Maybe for the benefit of the members, clause. For the benefit of the members, clause 3 is at page 2 of the bill, in the middle.
Okay, shall Clause 3 carry? Yes. Clause 3 is carried. Clause-
Chair, again, I didn't give my consent for it to carry. I genuinely believe you should wait for my consent for it to carry as the official opposition, please. I recognize the urgency of this, but we are moving relatively quickly through it. So certainly, after I've identified it and have a chance to review it again briefly in my own slow reading time, I will more than likely carry it. Thank you, Chair.
Committee, Madam Clerk, I'll ask for a recorded vote on Clause 3.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Coteau,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen,
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan,
We.
Ms. Kuzi.
Chair, I'm not sure why we're doing a recorded division if it was too slow to read the clause by clause, but yet we're taking up more time to do recorded division, because it seems to me that
Monsieur le Président, il n'y a pas de traduction.
is it
There's no translation, Mr. Chair.
going to be doing recorded division on all of the clauses? And if so, then why didn't we do it on the previous two clauses?
Yes, I want to see if translation has been resumed. Is there still an issue, Madame Shabat? There's no translation? Yeah, I didn't get it. Okay. To answer your question, Madame Kuzi, it's to avoid any confusion from the committee.
But is it just specifically for clause 3?
Mr. Chair, we're in the middle of a vote here. This is not a debate.
I don't know what I'm voting on. I don't know what I'm voting on.
Read your paper. Read your paper.
We voted on Clause 3.
But I'm not sure why we're voting on clause 3 when we didn't do recorded division on 1 and
That's-
2.
We're in the
That's
middle
at
of a
our
vote,
discretion
Chair.
to have a recorded division.
Okay, so some we will be doing recorded division on and some we will not. We will just be carrying. But then don't we need to know why the government
We're
wants to
still in
do
the middle
recorded
of a
division
debate.
on clause
We're still in
3?
the middle of a vote, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Order?
we are on its point of order. We are in the middle of a vote, Madame Kuzi. Well, I would ask that we continue with the vote. Did you vote?
Well, I don't know what I'm voting on because I don't know why.
We're voting on clause 3
Okay, why are we voting on clause 3?
because I
Really?
call for a
Seriously?
vote to avoid confusion.
But then why didn't we do recorded division on 1 and 2?
Because I didn't,
Vote here.
yes.
There's nothing but disruption. Let's move on.
Mr. Chair, there's been a couple of instances where the member from Newmarket Aurora has purposely attacked another member on this side of the house. I think we're trying to do our due diligence on this, and that particular member has a history of this. And I would just remind that member that we're doing our best to get this done as quickly as possible, and hopefully we can stop with the disruptions on that side, so we can finish up and make sure we get through this as a committee.
Thank you, Member. It would be my wish as chair that we will do a recorded vote on each of the clauses.
But then I expect the government to tell us why we are doing a recorded vote on clause 3. Why clause 3 and why not 1 and 2? What's the importance of 3? That we would need a required vote, that we need a recorded vote.
To avoid any confusion, Madame Kuzi.
But there
as-
might be
as you
confusion on 1 and
indicated.
2, Chair.
There was none indicated, and we've already carried those, Madame Kuzi. Those have been carried. Madame Clerk?
Okay.
Ms. Kuzi?
In favor?
Mr. Genereux?
In favor.
Mr. Benson?
In favor.
Mr. Ruff?
In favor.
Madame Chabot? Pour. Monsieur Boulouris?
Pour.
11 yeas. 11. Oui.
Clause 3 is carried. Clause 4? Clause 4.
Carried.
I'll call for, as I indicated, a recorded vote on Clause 4.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Coteau?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
4.
Ms. Kuzi?
In favor?
Mr. Genereux?
In favor.
Mr. Benson?
In favor.
Mr. Ruff?
In favor.
Madame Chabot? Pour. Monsieur Boulouris?
Pour.
Clause 4 is carried. Clause 5? I see no discussion. Shall Clause 5 carry? Recorded vote.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Coteau?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Pour.
Ms. Kuzi?
In favor?
Mr. Genereux?
In favor.
Mr. Benson?
In favor.
Mr. Ruff?
In favor.
Madame Chabot? Pour. Monsieur Boulouris?
Pour.
Clause 5 is carried. Clause 6? Shall Clause 6 carry? Recorded vote.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Coteau?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen,
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan,
4.
Ms. Kuzi,
In favor.
Mr. General,
In favor.
Mr. Benson,
In favor.
Mr. Ruff,
In favor.
Madame Chabot. Pour. Monsieur Boulouris.
Pour.
11 yeas.
Clause 6 is carried. I understand, Madame Kusi, you have an amendment?
Yes, I have two amendments in clause, one amendment in clause 7 that, and please tell me if this is taking too much time to read, that Bill C3 in clause 7 be amended by adding after line 15 on page 4 the following. For greater certainty, subsections 1.2 to 1.6 do not apply to an employee who's entitled to rights or benefits under a collective agreement, contract, custom, or arrangement that are at least as favorable to the employee as the medical leave of absence with pay conferred by this division.
Madame Kuzi, I'm going to ask the legislative clerk to outline
Madam Kuzi, I think you have another amendment before this one. It's the last 4 digit of the reference number is
pardon me.
9594.
Yes, I'll be withdrawing that amendment, Chair. Thank you.
Okay.
That is fine. Do you want to proceed to your amendment on?
Yeah. No. Now.
Now?
Yeah, pardon me, Chair. The amendment that the analyst referred to, I'll be withdrawing, and I will be presenting the one I just read into the record, Chair. Thank you.
Clause 6 was carried. We're going to clause 7. And I understand there's an amendment from the NDP on clause 7 and the NDP 1.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If it's possible, there are 2 amendments, NDP 1 and 2. If it's possible, I'd like us to go to 2 first because it pertains to 2 elements, and if it's defeated, then NDP 1 will not work either. So there's some logic to that.
We can do that.
Okay. Alors,
So NDP 2, it clarifies the problem that we had identified with the civic calendar for acquiring the first day of sick leave. We talk about 30 consecutive days instead of a civic month. And as we had talked earlier today about this matter, and further to recommendations made by several different associations from the health sector, NDP 2 will cover this so that everyone starts the system with a minimum of 4 days in their leave bank. The minister seemed today to be open to this amendment, so someone doesn't have to wait 3 or 4 months before they can benefit from these sick day leaves. So that's for this reason that we found that 4 days was a number that was put forward by the professional associations, and it enables people to continue accumulating paid sick leave to a maximum of 10 days, and the 30 days of consecutive days of contingent employment will pertain. So that's essentially what NDP 2 is all about.
Belarus, I understand the amendment is in order, but I would just for clarification, if NDP 2 is adopted, NDP 1 and BQ1 cannot be moved due to conflict of lines. So the committee has heard the amendment.
si on obtient 4, on a 4.
Chair?
Could I just hear from
Mr. Sheen?
I would just like to hear from the officials about what's being proposed before us, if that's okay, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Okay, who from the officials would like to speak to the amendment put forward by the NDP?
Good afternoon, Chair. I'd be happy to speak to that. So, as I understand there, that the proposed amendment would provide for 4 days of medical leave with pay for employees. Was not 100% clear there in terms of after what period of time, or if there is any period of time after which they would need to work to obtain those 4 days, and that subsequently they would continue to earn an additional day of medical leave with pay up to the maximum of 10, but after a 30-day period of continuous employment rather than referring to completed months of employment as is referred to in the bill unamended.
Mr. Sheen?
So that would potentially lead to more than 10 days of paid sick leave to the official?
As I'm understanding, so there was one piece there I was not clear about on the amendment in terms of whether there is some requirement to obtain those first 4 days of medical leave with pay. However, my understanding is that it would ensure that people are not beginning with having to earn sort of it wouldn't take as long to have access to those first 4 days of medical leave with pay. They would have access to that sooner, but they would continue to be earning days subsequently for each 30 days of continuous employment. So that being a difference from the specific calendar months approach of the bill unamended.
Oui, j'aimerais peut-être faire une...
I'd like to clarify something. I see that there was a piece missing in the English, but it's present in the French, and it specifies up to 10 days per year, so a maximum of 10 days of leave. This last portion of the sentence is not found in the English version.
I will ask the legislative clerk to speak to that.
Oui. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Balleras, it's because your amendment, which is to be inserted into the bill, it says when one additional day of leave on page 3, I believe. And
calendar year. C'est parce qu'on le coupe là, c'est la façon de...
It's the way the amendment's been drafted, but everything is there in both versions.
Are you okay with that, Monsieur Belarus? Mr. Sheen? Okay.
I have no further questions right now.
Okay, you've heard the amendment. We will vote on the amendment on NDP 2. We're voting on.
Mr. Long.
I'd have to say no. I'm not clear on the wording, so no.
Mr. Coteau.
No.
Mr. Collins.
No.
Mr. Van Bynen.
No.
Mr. Sheehan.
No.
Ms. Kuzi.
In favor.
Mr. Genereux.
In favor.
Mr. Benson.
I'm voting no.
Mr. Ruff.
In favor.
Madame Chabot.
En faveur.
Monsieur Bouloris.
Pour.
5 yeas, 6 nays.
The motion was defeated. The amendment was defeated. Before we get to that, I'm going to, Monsieur Belarus, you had another amendment you wanted to move?
Oui, c'était.
Yes, I'm referring to NDP 1, which goes back to the idea of 30 days of continuous employment, with the exception of the day that was provided for in NDP 2. So those 2 days don't exist. But this, I'm just clarifying the 30 days of medical leave of absence. So if you were hired on the 15th of the March or the 7th of March, it's the number of days worked that is counted, and not the from the start of the month.
Okay, you've heard the second amendment from the NDP, and before we proceed to a vote, be clear, if NDP, Madame Chabot?
I don't know if this is a point of order, but I would like some clarification. I understand you've entitled these NDP 1 and 2, but I presented BQ 1.
Madame Chabot, on est rendu comme...
As you just pointed out, we have gone through, we're now at NDP 1, and what the chair was about to say is if 1 is adopted, BQ 1 can't be proposed because there'll be a line conflict. I do understand. I just wanted to say, for the benefit of those who are on the table, you know this, but not everybody's sitting around the table. So I'm not going to be able to present BQ1. So you understand what I'm trying to get at? You understand how the procedure works, but for the public and for people around the table, we don't particularly know how it works. So we can vote in favor with respect to NDP 1.
Thank you. We will proceed to a vote on NDP 1 with the understanding if it's adopted, BQ 1 cannot be moved due to a conflict of lines. So we are voting on NDP 1. Madame.
Okay, I don't understand how NDP 1 is different from the proposed legislation within the bill.
Mr. Belarus will have to speak to that.
Oui, merci pour la question.
Thank you for your question. It's just to avoid this situation. I referred to an example. Let's say someone's hired on March 8th, but the 3 months in March won't count because he'll have to work the entire month of April. So it's because of that gap. So we're simply saying 4 weeks of consecutive work. That means a month. So the fact that it's continuous, that's the fact that it's continuous employed. It's 30 days of continuous employment. Thank you.
Thank you, Madame Kuzi. We were proceeding with vote on NDP 1.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Coteau,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen,
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan,
Pour.
Ms. Kuzi,
4.
Mr. Genereux,
4.
Mr. Benson,
4.
Mr. Ruff,
In favor.
Madame Chabot, pour, Monsieur Bouloris,
Pour.
11 yeas, 11 pour.
Your amendment is carried, NDP Amendment 1. We'll now proceed to NDP 3. Mr. Belarus?
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When we talked earlier about the problems that could be caused, that you have to go to the doctor to take because you've taken 2 days of medical leave, 2 consecutive days. Doctors have complained that this will be an extra administrative leave. They've got other things to do. And we had a survey that we referred to earlier. If we talk about having a leave certificate, perhaps the employees will not want to bother going, and this is a problem with a pandemic. So we're saying that if we're talking about 5 days of consecutive leave, then you can need a certificate, because in the original law, it was 1 or 2 days of absence whereby the employer could ask for a certificate. So I'm saying here that we need a minimum of 5 days, 5 consecutive days, and that's reasonable.
Thank you, Monsieur Belarus. If NDP 3 is adopted, BQ2 cannot be moved due to conflict of lines. So we'll call a vote on NDP 3.
Mr. Long,
Support.
Mr. Coteau,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen,
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan,
For.
Ms. Kuzi,
Support.
Mr. Genereux,
In favor.
Mr. Benson,
In favor.
Mr. Ruff,
In favor.
Madame Chabot,
En faveur.
Monsieur Boulouris,
Pour.
11 yeas, 11 pour.
NDP 3 is carried. We now move to CPC 7. CPC 7. CPC 2. My notes are wrong. Excuse me, CPC 2. There's a 7 on my note. Okay. Sorry for that, but CPC 2. Who is speaking to CPC 2? Madame Kuzi?
Pardon me. So it reads that Bill C3 in Clause 7 be amended by adding, after line 15 on page 4, the following. For greater certainty, subsections 1.2 to 1.6 do not apply to an employee who is entitled to rights or benefits under a collective agreement, contract, or custom arrangement that are at least as favorable to the employee as the medical leave of absence with pay conferred by this division, and that's in an effort to avoid the duplication of those unions in particular that already provide these leave provisions, Chair.
Committee members have heard Madame Kuzi's amendment.
Chair, I wonder if we could get an opinion from the officials whether this is actually necessary.
Who wants to speak to the question posed by Mr. Long?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. I can speak to that question if you'd like. Can people hear me? I seem to have lost
Yes.
connection for a moment there. Okay, perfect. My understanding of the amendment is that it would provide for a somewhat looser definition than what is provided currently in the bill. And so I think employers would have somewhat more flexibility under this amendment than what they would under the bill. So that is, I believe, what would be the effect of this amendment.
Monsieur Boulourous?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask the experts a question. I understand the intent behind the amendment. I agree with it, but when you talk about a collective agreement, or rights or benefits that are at least as favorable to the employee, when you talk about a current practice, a routine practice I think we're getting a little bit ambiguous or vague here, because people could say, well, at our place it works a little bit differently, and then we get into this whole debate on what the routine practice is. I think we're going to wind up with something that is not as clear.
If no further questions on CPC 2, Madame Shabat.
Along the same line, if we look at the provisions, we're amending the leave practices, but if there's a collective agreement that provides more than what's provided here, I don't see why what's the benefit of going ahead with such an amendment? Unless I get an explanation to the contrary. That was an objective of our amendment. If there is a package where there are better benefits than those provided for in the bill, of course, that would take precedence. Thank you.
So no further questions. I will call for the vote on CPC 2.
Mr. Long,
Oppose?
Mr. Coteau,
No.
Mr. Collins,
Nope.
Mr. Van Bynen,
Nope.
Mr. Sheehan,
Opposed.
Ms. Kuzi,
In favor.
Mr. Genereux,
In favor.
Mr. Benson,
In favor.
Mr. Ruff,
In favor.
Madame Chabot,
Contre.
Monsieur Boulay-Riss,
Contre.
Four yeas, 4 pour, 7 nays, 7 contre.
CPC 2 amendment is defeated. Shall Clause 7 carry as amended? Recorded vote.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Coteau,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen,
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan,
Yes.
Ms. Kuzi,
In favor.
Mr. Genereux,
In favor.
Mr. Benson,
In favor.
Mr. Ruff,
In favor.
Madame Chabot,
Pour.
Monsieur Boulay-Riss,
Pour.
11 yeas, 11 pour.
Clause 7 as amended is carried. I understand there's a NDP amendment. NDP 4.
Ouais. Merci. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The last amendment, if I understand correctly, the purpose of this amendment is to correct a situation which we feel caused some inequality. We asked a question earlier. The answer was clear. The bill considers as every employee to start from the same start line, but an employee that has been working in a company for many years will find himself in the same situation as a new employee. So his seniority will not give him any advantages. What we're proposing is that in order to recognize the seniority, if someone's been working for this company for 10 or 15 years, then at the outset, if they have more than 2 years of experience, that they should have access as soon as the law comes into force to 10 days of medical leave for the upcoming year, and not be like a new employee who has to wait until he or she accumulates more leave. So this would help those employees who have been in a company for many years, and they won't have to go right back to the starting line to acquire sick leave.
Mr. Long?
Thank you, MP Boulders. Could I get a opinion from the officials on this?
You certainly can. Director, who would you wish to speak to this?
Whoever would like. Maybe Mr. Brown.
Sure. Thanks. Mr. Chair, in terms of the amendment as proposed,
Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown. Is it okay now? Okay, we're having difficulty hearing what you might.
Sorry.
It's fine now.
Okay, thank you. The amendment as moved would provide to employees referred to the sort of seniority. So having at least 2 years of experience with that employer, with being able to start at the outset with 10 days of medical leave with pay without having to earn those in the first year. So that's certainly, as I understood that would impact the majority of employees who would certainly have some experience. I don't have the figure for the number that would have more than 2 years of experience, but I would certainly say the majority of employees would be starting from 10 days rather than starting from 0 and having to earn 1 day per month effectively to reach that maximum of 10. And it would presumably make sense to frame this in terms of continuous employment, which is a term that is already used within the Canada Labour Code.
Mr. Long? Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Genereux?
Yeah, thanks. Can I just get Mr. Brown's opinion? Is this retroactive? Would it be, I guess, described as retroactive in his opinion?
I think that the way to refer to this would be retrospective, and I'll clarify the distinction there. It would be looking at the period of time for which an employee has been working with an employer. And so that could be looking at a period of time that predates a coming into force, assuming that this comes into force. So it would be looking backwards to determine when the employee started to work for the employer. However, in terms of when an employee would be eligible to receive or be eligible to take those days of paid sick leave, that would be moving forward. So from the time that this legislation would come into force, so assuming that it gets passage. So that being the distinction between retroactive and retrospective, it would look backwards to consider the period of employment with the employer.
Committee has heard the amendment to NDP 4, moved by Mr. Boulders. Mr. Long? Okay. I will call for a vote on NDP Amendment 4.
I fear it could affect implementation, so I'll have to oppose.
Oppose.
Mr. Collins? Opposed. Mr. Van Bynen?
No.
Mr. Sheehan?
No.
Ms. Kuzi?
Support.
Mr. Genereux?
In favor.
Mr. Benson?
I'm opposed.
Mr. Ruff?
In favor.
Madame Chabot? Pour. Mr. Bouleris?
Pour.
Five yeas, 5 pour, 6 nays, 6 contre.
NDP motion 4 is defeated. We will now proceed to Clause 8. Mr. General?
Sorry, this is a coming into force piece? Yeah. No amendment, but just to highlight the minister's words, he was very clear that he wanted this to come into force, in his words, before Christmas. As I'm reading this, that's not possible with this particular section of the bill in which he wrote. Just ask for some clarification from the officials that I'm reading this correctly.
Which official wishes to address must address Mr. Generou's question?
I'd be happy to respond to that.
Okay.
Yes, so the...
Mr. Wolf, could you speak louder or move your mic? Boom.
I'm so sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yes, the coming into force date is upon order of the governor in council. So that could be at a moment to be decided in the future, or that will be decided in the future. As you heard the minister, I think there is considerable interest in having this come into force as soon as possible.
And just to be clear, Mr. Wolf, good to see you again. We have a lot of history together on my bill. But there's, within the two sections, Section 1 reading that coming into force on the 30th day after the day of which the Act received royal assent. And from our experience, royal assent was essentially, I think it was 3 months in our case, but it was 30, they're saying 30 days after the day. So it passes in the Senate, let's say next week. It still then would require those days to get to royal assent, and then an additional 30 days on top of that once. And royal assent usually takes, a day or two after it passes in the Senate. So we're looking at probably sometime later January. Is that, am I kind of doing my math right there, Mr. Wolf?
Excuse me, I think there's been a slight mix-up here. I think you may be referring to the criminal code coming into force.
Section 8(1). So then Section 6 and 7, Section 2 would be when the sick days would come into force.
So yes, it is for the sick days provisions. It is coming into force by governor and council.
So is this typical to have these split, like sections of the bill split like this?
It's fairly typical when different provisions are put together, as they have been in this bill.
Okay. Thanks for hearing me.
Address your issues, Mr. General?
Yeah, I think so. I think the part of what we were looking to do was to split the bill into two at one point, and I think that probably highlights just that the initial need for that. In the interest of getting this passed for a variety of reasons, particularly the sick leave piece, I think it's important that we move forward. But again, it's as the minister, when he comes here and kind of states one thing, and then we're left here to kind of pick up the pieces on the rest. It's it gets to be a little bit. I guess a little bit cumbersome on our end, but again, thank you to Mr. Wolf and to all the officials for taking the time to explain the nuances of this piece of legislation.
Thank you, Mr. General. Shall Clause 8 carry? Recorded vote.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Coteau,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen,
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan,
Pour.
Ms. Kuzi,
In favor.
Mr. Genereux,
In favor.
Mr. Benson,
In favor.
Mr. Ruff,
In favor.
Madame Chabot,
Pour.
Monsieur Boulris,
Pour.
11 yeas, 11 pour.
Clause 8 has carried. Shall the title carry? Recorded vote.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Coteau,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen,
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan,
Agreed.
Ms. Kuzi,
In favor.
Mr. Genereux,
In favor.
Mr. Benson,
In favor.
Mr. Ruff,
In favor.
Madame Chabot,
Pour.
Monsieur Boulris,
Pour.
11 yeas, 11 pour.
The title is carried. Shall the bill as amended carry? Recorded vote.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Coteau,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen,
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan,
Yes.
Ms. Kuzi,
In favor.
Mr. Genereux,
In favor.
Mr. Benson,
In favor.
Mr. Ruff,
In favor.
Madame Chabot,
Pour.
Monsieur Boulris,
Pour.
11 yeas, 11 pour.
The bill as amended is carried. Shall the chair report the bill as amended to the House? Recorded vote.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Coteau,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen,
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan,
Yes.
Ms. Kuzi,
In favor.
Mr. Genereux,
In favor.
Mr. Benson,
In favor.
Mr. Ruff,
In favor.
Madame Chabot,
Pour.
Monsieur Boulris,
Pour.
11 yeas, 11 pour.
The chair will report the bill as amended to the House. Shall the committee order a reprint of the bill as amended for the use of the House at report stage? Those in agreement? Recorded.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Coteau,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen,
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan,
Pour.
Ms. Kuzi,
In favor.
Mr. Genereux,
In favor.
Mr. Benson,
In favor.
Mr. Ruff,
In favor.
Madame Chabot,
Pour.
et Monsieur Boulris.
Pour.
11 yeas, 11 pour.
Thank you, committee members. That concludes the clause-by-clause reading of Bill C3 and the approval to proceed from here. I want to, at this time, thank the committee members for their work and especially the staff of committee members and the minister's staff. I know a lot of work has gone into this. There was a tight timeline, and this committee achieved consideration and approval of this bill. So thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Mr. Ruff?
Yeah, just before we adjourn, Chair, I just kind of want to put it on the record here. Like this afternoon, there was a lot of panic, I guess, between interpreters, legislative clerks, law clerks to try to get amendments done. And I get the rush. I totally appreciate that. But I just think in consideration of the staff and the incredible work they have to do, that like 24 hours, we still would have plenty of time to get this through. I just think for future consideration at this committee of any future legislations or bills, I would strongly recommend that we try to share stuff ahead of time and give enough time for everybody on this committee and the respective members of parliament and the necessary clerks, translation staff, etc., enough time to actually do their job, and it'll, I think, make it run a lot smoother in the future. So I just wanted to get that on the record. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ruff. Duly noted, and at the same time, a chair on OJT. Thank you. On-the-job training. Adjourned.
Thank you.